Hi, Sia. Thank you for coming to Across the Arc. It's nice to meet you. Of
It's nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me.
course, of course. So for anyone who is unaware or unfamiliar with Castle of Our Skins, I'm wondering if you could give a brief overview of your work.
Yes, so Castle of Our Skins is a Boston based concert and education series focused around Black artistry. So we were founded as a classical music organization and still largely focused on music, but a lot of our work is shifting to be what we call Music Plus. So it typically means that we have some great music that was composed by, some wonderful Black composer. And then maybe we incorporate dance, maybe we incorporate poetry, maybe we incorporate food. So it is Music Plus, and it is always changing and evolving. So that is Castle of Our Skins, and the organization is 11 years old now.
That's awesome. I love Music Plus. And with that interdisciplinary focus, I'm wondering, like you said, you went from more of a classical music focus, and now you're involving all these other forms of art. And so, how have you seen that transform, especially among your classical instrumentalists?
I think people have been really energized by it. I have had the opportunity to speak to a lot of audience members, and they say that they enjoy coming to our concerts and events because they don't know what they're going to expect, and also because it's something different. A lot of classical music organizations, especially, I can't, this is not every single one of them, but a lot of them continue to kind of fit into the kind of concert style that we've always known, and of course we've grown to love. But we try to do something different, and we try to do something unexpected, and I think people respond well. I think for some people it's still a challenge because they don't know what they're going to expect, and some people don't really like that. But I think for the people who find that exciting, it is interesting, and I see that when people are excited about it, they're also excited to share. So that's really nice as well.
Yeah, at Equity Arc, we talk a lot and think a lot about careers in music and what that looks like from the full stages of musical development. And so a lot of your work is at that professional stage, but I know you transcend all across each stage of musical development. And so it's really interesting to hear about audiences and the fact that it is possible to make a sustainable living. Focusing not just on the standard, tradition of classical music. So that's great. That's great to hear about that.
Yeah, I think that more and more people are kind of coming to that realization that, oh, I can do many things, or I can play many instruments, or I can like and be good at many genres of music even, which I think for us classical musicians, we have trouble with that. We've we have trouble with the idea that someone can like anything other than classical music and want to investigate and be excited about that. So I think that people are becoming more open to the idea. um, Someone was recently telling me, they were saying that, for classical music organizations especially, we kind of need to adapt or we won't continue to exist. And so I like to think that Castle of Our Skins, especially because this is what we're talking about, is doing a good job of adapting to the current moment, whatever that is. So but also adapting to change, and really building out a plan for sustainability and longevity, as it relates to art.
I love that. I would love for you to go into that even further. It seems like that is relating to this idea of cultural curiosity, that idea of, like you said, adapting. Can you give some examples of what that looks like at Castle of Our Skins?
Yeah, so Castle of Our Skins has evolved, I think, quickly in a lot of ways and kind of at a sustainable pace. So I have been with the organization for just over 6 months now, and I have been the first sort of external hire from somewhere else. And I think that that was a really big turning point for the organization because for a lot of people, it confirmed and showed that we are interested in being around and existing for the long term. And so we're going to invest in people. So this investment in people and sustainability is one that I think many organizations don't really consider, or when they do consider it, they don't do it in the right time because timing is everything, especially in arts organizations. So I think that's one example of something that the organization has done well, has done patiently, has done slowly, is sort of this slow ramp up, slow build, not saying, oh, we're in year two and we want $1 million. It was it was nothing like that. It was, okay, we're in year two. We want to just keep going. We want to keep building. We want to keep following this thing because I don't think in the beginning anyone really knew what it was. They're like, oh, we're gonna do a thing, and we're curious about Black composers and Black music, so we'll just keep going. And it kept, and in keeping it going, it kept growing too. So I think a large part of the way the organization exists is curiosity about the future of what it means to be a nonprofit, what it means to be, an artist in the 21st century living in a city like Boston, which has so many wonderful arts organizations and institutions. So that's a part of curiosity that keeps the organization going. Working with living composers is a very curious experience. It's a very great experience and something that we will continue to do and prioritize. But again, there are many people who are not interested in following sort of that curious path of working with living composers. So that's another example of something that we've been able to do and really make it kind of like a central part of our work. So those are some examples of curiosity, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that. And another thing I'm hearing in terms of how you're adapting is like you said, there's a very specific musical ecosystem that's happening in Boston. And so adapting to that is really critical. And I hear that as a national organization about what is going on musically in each of these spaces. And I'm hearing that it's very unique and also very robust over there.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know that before I came here. I felt very I was very ignorant to what was happening in Boston, having only ever lived in the Southeast United States. And so I came here and I was like, okay, what do I know about Boston? I know that it snows. So I was really excited about that. And it has snowed, which is great. But I didn't know that there were so many art museums and so many libraries and so many books and so many orchestras. There are of course the main ones, but then there are so many like neighborhood orchestras as well, kind of like, you walk outside and you walk down the street and it's like, oh, that's my neighborhood orchestra. That's a thing here too. That's really awesome. And there are chamber groups and duos and trios and all kinds of things. So it is really uh, a place with a lot of music. I think, as with any artist in any location, making a living is always going to be, hopefully not always going to be, but it historically has been a challenge. And so people don't always feel that they have opportunities and that they are supported here. But one thing I've seen with Castle of Our Skins is I think we are doing our small part to try to make it so that people do feel as though they are supported to make a living as an artist, whatever that means for them. So I am proud of the work that we've done so far in contributing to this artistic ecosystem. And I'm hopeful about what we'll be able to do in the future in terms of keeping Boston a really hub for classical music and art in general.
Yeah, I saw that you have, I think you call them creatives in residence. Can you talk a little bit more about that structure and how that plays into the artistic ecosystem and sustaining that?
Yeah, so the Shirley Graham Du Bois Creative in Residence program is in its fourth year. And the thing about this program is that it is the true plus of the Music Plus part of what we do. So far, we've had one dancer, two poets, and I think the first person was a composer, or maybe they were another kind of artist. But either way, this is a program where we do a national call for artists of all kinds. So all you have to identify as is a Black artist, and you submit your work. There is a panel, and then the person chosen is in residence at Castle of Our Skins for 1 year. So in residence means a lot of things, and because these people historically have not been, or these artists historically have not been composers, we've had to really expand and broaden what it means to be in residence. So that has meant publishing poems, that has meant creating poems that are set to music, that has meant curating calls for other kinds of art to be included in capstone projects. It has meant dancing for videos and creating other kinds of dance inspired projects, and it's an opportunity for us really to support an artist for a year and to support them to make the art that they want to make, because artists, I think we all know that it's very difficult to find the kind of support that you want for the art that you want to make. There is a lot of support out there to create art, but rarely is it focused around the art that someone wants to make, so we focus on saying to this person, hey, you can make something, just tell us and we'll be there. It was kind of our ethos around the project. And so far it's been really, really wonderful, and I'm excited to keep that program growing, and to seeing, how can we create more support, what is this, and also, part of creating a program, I'm sure Equity Arc is thinking a lot about this, is how do you support the alumni of the program? That's like such a huge aspect of running any type of program. I've been a part of so many wonderful programs, and sort of the graduation day comes or the end comes, and you never hear from those people again. And the great thing about where this program is in its fourth year is that I think we have the opportunity, and we have enough alumni to really be able to do something. So that'll be exciting, whatever we come up with the do something is. But um, yeah, it's a really special program for special kind of people.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We're thinking about our alumni as well, especially with at the pre-college space. With our Pathways Orchestra, we are in the same space where we have quite a few alumni. They're now freshmen in college, and we're engaging them kind of on an individual basis, but we eventually want to definitely formalize that into a more, yeah, a formalized alumni network. So yes, I think that's what a lot of us are thinking about right now as well. Just that sustained stages across the arc as they get to each stage, what are the supports that are needed. So yeah, I would love to go kind of back. We're talking right now a lot into that professional stage, but I would love to go back into the entry and early pre-college, the work that you're doing right now, and collegiate with the Music Inclusion Hub. And you also have, of course, a number of other initiatives. But maybe we start with Music Inclusion Hub, and you can tell me more about how that idea came to be, and then the types of folks that you're wanting to serve with that resource.
Yes. So from my understanding, the Music Inclusion Hub came out of a late night idea and text conversation between a few people. And what it evolved into is this hub where people can go and find resources about underrepresented composers, and those resources are at varying levels, and are, you know, vary in accessibility, in terms of some paid, some free resources. And so I think what we were hearing and what the organizations that we worked with on the project, Boulanger Initiative and Decomposed, were hearing was that people felt like they needed resources. A lot of teachers, for instance, and I'm referring to maybe teachers in K-12 settings, we're saying, you know, we want to teach the music of Black composers, we want to teach the music of women composers, but we don't know where to start, and they just don't have the time because they have negative time. So the Music Inclusion Hub came together in order to be a hub for those resources, because and also too, another part of this is there are some resources out there, but they can be difficult to find. And again, not having a lot of time, putting them all in one place is an easy way to say, okay, you need resources, here you go. You know, it might not be um, what you thought, but it definitely exists and it's accessible. And you can also talk to the people who created the resources. So that's fun. And you are able to, you know, use it as you need and to make it your own. So that's where the Music Inclusion Hub idea came from, is to create a hub of work, a hub of resources that is easy to use, it's easy to find, and it's fun too. So this project was supported, thankfully, by a Sphinx Venture Fund grant, and it launched just under a month ago, actually, here in 2024. And the response so far has been really, really wonderful. I think we are seeing people look at the resources. We're seeing people use the database. We're seeing people purchase the curriculum guides, and I think, you know, eventually we will see the benefits of all of that hard work that happened in the course of a year. It was only a year that all of this happened, so it was definitely a lot of work. So kudos to the people who worked very closely on that.
Yes, congratulations to everyone involved on this amazing initiative. One thing I noticed and admired was the emphasis on the fact that this is initiative that's run primarily by three women-led nonprofits. And so when thinking about intersectionality and collaboration, I just love to hear about what that process has been like. What does that mean, you know, to you and to Council of Our Skins, you know, to be able to be part of an initiative like that?
For small nonprofit organizations, I think partnership and collaboration are key. You don't really get started in a nonprofit without a friend or without someone who is there to support you or to work with you. And as you grow, you still need and want to have collaborators and partners, because that makes things more fun. I'm obviously all about fun. And that makes things more enjoyable and makes things a little bit easier too. You know, any one of these organizations, we could have said, hey, we want to build this huge website with all of these resources, but that would have been way too much work. And we also, you know, Castle of Our Skins, we focus on Black composers and Black music. Um, so that doesn't mean that we don't perform the works of other composers of other identities, but that's not sort of our area of expertise. And so it didn't really make sense to create a hub and a resource that we didn't know as well. So that's also where partnering with other organizations comes in. It's like those organizations do something really, really well and really, really special. So why don't we just work with them to do what they do best, and we'll do what we do best. And if we come together, well, then we're all doing great, great things. So that's why partnership and collaboration were a big part of it. Uh, as far as the kind of the work, it was just a year of meeting a lot and talking a lot and finalizing resources and working with composers for us and Decomposed who created these wonderful videos, getting the musicians together and creating it. So, in some ways, each organization is responsible for their kind of section of the hub and their major contribution. And there isn't a ton of editorial work happening. We don't say to either of the organizations, or they don't say to us even, hey, you should do this. It's not like that at all. It's truly collaborative in that it's like, hey, you do this well, great, just keep doing that and we'll support you and we'll be your biggest cheerleaders. So I think that's part of why too this collaboration has worked so well, is that the people who are working on it are committed to that kind of work and to that process of just celebrating each other and then making the work happen.
That's amazing. And I know you said, this was launched less than a month ago, and so we're still going to see, what the true impact is. But I'm just curious about what you'd like to see, especially as it relates to impacting curriculum and repertoire focuses at other stages of musical development, particularly in the collegiate stage and also in the professional stage. What change would you like to see?
Yeah, I think for Castle of Our Skins and for the Music Inclusion Hub um, organizations, I hope that in some amount of time, I think 5 years is realistic, that we see some of these pieces and some of this work sort of absorbed into the curriculum, especially as it relates to kind of like the K-12 sector and group. You know, changes change happens, but it happens at a maybe a slower pace than any of us would all like. So we're patient around when we hope to see kind of the payoff of this work, but we know that it is happening, and we know that we're going to keep putting time and energy and resources into ensuring that it does happen. So definitely the sort of absorption of the curriculum and the compositions into kind of the pre-training and training programs. We also hope that I think it's just more people feel like they know about things. I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were writing a curriculum for their music theory class, and they were saying, "Hey, um, I'm trying to come up with an example of a half diminished 7/5/7, something like this chord in a a piece. Do you know one?" Because they didn't want to use the one that had been typically used in class. And I was like, "Oh, well, you should check out these two websites that do just that." And so it's not even so much that we want people to necessarily use the Music Inclusion Hub resources, but we want people to know that there are resources that exist. And I think that's even like that's the kind of first step, or step zero even, is just getting people to think that there are things that exist, which is again going back to Castle of Our Skins, right? We want people to be curious about music, about art, about Black composers in particular. So starting there, starting at step zero of, hey, oh, there are Black composers. Hey, oh, there are women composers. Oh, and we can use them in our music theory classes, or we can use them in band or in orchestra, or even better, in our private lessons. Like we can use their work to be shining examples of the classical music repertoire. So those are kind of where we hope to see things going and moving in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sometimes information is all you need to be aware of initially. And I'm glad to see that there are more and more databases like yours coming out to be a resource for others. So that's wonderful.
I think there can be this assumption that because we all have access to Google, that means we know about everything, and it's true. Yes, we a lot of us do have access to Google in our pocket computers, aka cell phones, but sometimes you really do just need someone that you know to say, "Hey, here's a thing," and then kind of run with it. So um, don't I think we as people and as organizations we can't take knowledge for granted. We have to share and we have to keep talking about it and keep sharing in hopes that other people are able to do the same.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So staying in that K through 12, moving closer to the pre-college high school phase, I'd love for you to talk more about your pre-college partnerships, especially with Project Step. That's one of our other members. And so I'd love to hear about the role that Castle of Our Skins plays in mentoring the next generation of classical musicians or artists in your case.
So in Boston, in a lot of communities, there are really wonderful organizations who do what I call direct service work. So they're the organizations like Project Step who provide students with teachers and instruments, and teachers show the students how to do the thing. Where Castle of Our Skins comes in largely is to be another resource and support system for students, kind of once they know a little bit about how to play their instruments. So our work in the kind of K-12 pre-college space is to provide opportunities for students to perform with musicians, typically the music of Black composers. So a recent collaboration that we did with Project Step was where we had commissioned a piece by one of our co-founders, Anthony R. Green, called Kato's Courage. And then several members of Castle of Our Skins kind of music crew, as I'll call them, um, played alongside several students from Project Step in a performance where they premiered the piece. So beforehand, Castle of Our Skins musicians and Project Step students went through sort of a process that included learning about the curriculum guide, learning the history of the subject of the piece, learning about Anthony, working with Anthony because he's living and he's around. Um, so our work exists largely to support um, the things that are already happening. And I think that is a really special place for us to be. I think it is where we can have the most impact because we can say, hey, you wonderful composer over there, can you write a piece that would be fun and yet challenging for a ninth grade orchestra? And, that composer says, yeah. And then we do it. And so we're able to really share that music uh, also at a much bigger scale than if we only did it in our local community. So those are the kinds of K-12 collaborations that we typically do, and I think we're going to continue to really focus on and lean more into as time moves on.
Yeah, so moving into the collegiate space, I see that you have a intercollegiate fellowship with Black student unions. So could you talk more about that, the work and impact that you're making in the collegiate space?
Yes, so you caught me on a great day because the fellowship just wrapped up last night. So the we call it the Black Student Union, the BSU Fellowship Program, is a program for area college students, whether they be undergrad, graduate, or doctoral students, or their diplomas and things like that, who are attending the greater Boston-ish area conservatories and music schools, who identify as Black and who are just interested in doing cool stuff and are interested really in fellowship. So this program was started by our previous operations manager, Dave Norville. So Dave, I hope you're listening to this because shout out to Dave. And he came up with the idea as he was a recent, I want to say New England Conservatory um, student, New England Conservatory graduate. And I think during his time and also during the time of our co-founders, Anthony R. Green and Ashley Gordon, um, they found that there weren't a lot of Black students and also in conservatories that they were then attending. But they also found that the Black students who were there weren't able to really connect and find each other outside of, kind of walking down the practice room hall and, knocking on people's doors. So now what's really great is a lot of music schools and conservatories do have Black student unions for their music students. And these unions are typically student-led groups. They might have a sponsor who's a faculty member, but these groups come together to do a thing, to fellowship, to just be there for each other. Which music school is very challenging in a lot of ways, and having a support system, I think, is crucial to finishing and to having a successful career as a musician, whatever that means. And so we came up with the idea of, hey, what if we bring all of these students from these conservatories and these music schools together? Because Boston is interesting in that you have all of these great conservatories. You have Boston Conservatory, you have Berklee College of Music, you have Longy, and all the others, but they don't really talk to each other. And some of that is just things are kind of far apart, so it's difficult to. And some of that, I'm sure there are other reasons, but we want it to be an opportunity for the students who go to Boston Conservatory to say, "Hey, oh, you go to Longy? Okay, that's awesome. Like, let's do something. Let's be friends. Let's collaborate." And so the fellowship is a time for that. So typically, what happens is the students will get together. They will do what we call some like musical speed dating, and so they'll try out pieces. Have been fortunate to have some composers as part of the fellowship and sort of and as part of the project as well. So they'll write new pieces for the fellows, who end up becoming their friends. And then at the end of this, like 1 week or 2 weeks rather, there is a concert. And so the concert is always this really kind of cool, interesting thing. And what I realized in the past 2 weeks is that it's not really about the music. It's really about the time together and what the fellows get to do in that time together. So, outside of the kind of musical speed dating, the rehearsing, the students also go to different events around town. So they went to concerts. They're going to go to an art museum to see like a Black art exhibit specifically. And so that's really the point, is that they feel like they have a community of people who are trying to pursue, probably, hopefully, likely, similar goals, um, and who kind of get what it means to look like them in a space that historically has not been the nicest to people who look like them.
Absolutely, you're creating safe spaces for these students, like you said, community where they may be one of a few within their school, but to be able to be one of a larger number in the grand scheme of, Boston being exposed to Black art, that's really a phenomenal resource in this space. And hopefully more cities will take on something like this as well.
Yeah, I think as more music schools create, programs, that things like this will naturally kind of evolve. I never attended a music school that had like a Black student union or a kind of a group um, with some structure for Black music students. So I hope that people are seeing how important it is to the culture of their music schools. I think it has a big impact for sure.
Absolutely, culture, which leads to retention, all of the things. So yes. Um, I only have a few more questions for you. I am hearing about all of this amazing work you're doing at all of these different stages of musical development. And the burning question that comes to my mind is about the financial support that you're able to get to support all of this work. I know you mentioned it a little bit early on about, supporters and from an audience standpoint, but yeah, I'm just curious about where that support is coming from, what their reaction is, from your funders in the work that you're doing.
I think that funders and prospective funders are really again curious about what we do, and they're kind of interested in supporting the charge for change. So I think the response to our work has been really positive, and it only continues to grow. I think after what happened in 2020, a lot of organizations like ours, especially sort of Black led, woman led, doing really interesting and groundbreaking work, received a lot of one time support, these large sort of infusions of cash, and so now as that support kind of evolves, we are continuing to find new sources of support. But a lot of, and this is a positive thing for sure, a lot of um, foundations are kind of changing their grant making model and the way that they think about philanthropy in order to support more organizations like Castle of Our Skins, organizations who are committed to doing work in their communities, and a lot of organizations whose change is seen and is palpable. So I think it's definitely improving and growing, and our support model will continue to change and grow as we hopefully get bigger.
Yes, you're creating your own spaces. We hear this a lot, in theory, but you're doing the things. And so that's really awesome and hopefully inspiring for others who are wanting to make spaces similar, like what you're doing. I love that you constantly said fun, that this is I'm seeing a lot of Black joy that's coming
Yes, yes.
throughout your work. And it's just great that you're having that, financial backing to be able to have that freedom of expression and creativity as well.
Yeah, I think that what we do is very important, but it's not often usually urgent in the way that sort of um, some of the day-to-day things that people do in their work is urgent, but our work is important in that um, sort of the arc of the time we want it to keep growing and getting longer. So we try not to take ourselves too seriously, but we do know that the work is important and that it will continue to have hopefully lasting positive impacts on the classical music field.
Absolutely. And that leads really well into my last question for you. It's a question I ask all of my guests on Across the Arc. And that is, what do you envision for the future of classical music?
I envision the future of classical music to be hopefully a space and a genre that is open, like really open to thoughts, ideas, collaboration, and all of the sort of things that come along with being an artist. Earlier, I talked about, if you're not able to adapt, then you're not able to exist. And I hope that classical music becomes a place that is adapting and adaptable. We're seeing it from a lot of smaller organizations like Castle of Our Skins, like Decomposed, who are adapting. We're always changing and evolving. We are doing new things that have never been done before. But we don't get to see that from a lot of the sort of larger institutions in our various communities. And because of that, not all of those institutions exist today, even. Um, they have had to close because they haven't been able to adapt to a new model of music, you know. So I hope the future of classical music. I hope the future of the classical music community, of organizations like Equity Arc, like Castle of Our Skins, that we're contributing to, is highly adaptable, is evolutionary in that it continues to evolve, but also one that is positive and creates positive and lasting change in people's lives. Because I think a lot of people, they do find their sort of, you know, pocket of positivity within the classical music community. But it's not that they get it from everywhere. And so I think if we're able to, as a classical music community, create more positivity in the world and in what we do, that more people will be interested and hopefully find, again, joy, and satisfaction out of what we do.
That's amazing. You summed up our whole conversation really, really well. So thank you for that. But thank you again for just taking a moment to talk and to share more about the amazing work you're doing at Castle of Our Skins. I hope that our listeners and viewers get a lot out of this, and hopefully it inspires them to do some of this work in their own cities as well.
Yes, yes, and there are never too many nonprofits or in organizations and initiatives. Even though it might seem like it, there's always space for anyone to create their ideas and to collaborate and to grow.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.